I know most of us want to use prime lenses because, well, we just like them better.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
We didn't like zooms for a long time because zooms were really your dad's camera.
Using our advanced VHS technology.
You know, you would see your dad filming with it and he'd just be zooming in and out constantly. It happens. But today I want to talk about maybe the ultimate lens for the FX3 and FX6. Here we go. Zooms typically sometimes get a bad rap. When I think about zooms, I think about the zooms on the old video camera where, you know, my dad's filming me playing baseball or whatever sport I sucked at, and he's constantly zooming in and zooming out, probably to take away from the fact that I'm so bad at sports. But that said, zooms have a place, right? A lot of cinema zooms play into that. And one of the lenses I want to talk about that I think stands out the most, the Sony FE PZ 28-35. It's an f4. It's a G lens, it has stabilization, but more importantly, it has a manual and servo zoom functionality, which allows you to do some really cool shots, and we'll talk about that in just 1 second. I've been using this lens since we shot some BTS for an upcoming Stephen King movie. I can't say which one it is. And while I can't show that footage, I can show you some of the great stuff we've gotten over the past 8 months. So again, let's talk about the lens. The lens I'm referring to is the Sony PZ85, whatever, who cares? It's the Sony 28-135 f4. It's a G lens. It's become a standard kit lens in multiples of our shoots. And the reason why is because of the versatility that it offers us. It really has become something where if we're doing a docu-style shoot or a quick edit, we have the ability to step in there and grab some footage. Obviously, I have it today on the Dana dolly, and I enjoy it on the Dana for a multitude of reasons. One of those main reasons being that the Dana itself, with this mounted on it, allows you to reframe very quickly, allows you to change shots very quickly, and while you're doing maybe an interview Dana or just some B-roll, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that here shortly, it does allow it does allow the ability for you to reframe on the fly. That comes in handy. I don't use the motorized zoom very much except for these specialty shots, and I'll show you one now. Let me fire this bad boy up. So one of the shots we like to do is either a dolly in and zoom out, which gives you the ingenue effect or a smash zoom or a push-pull, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of slang for it. But another way is on just simple B-roll shots. And so I have a coffee cup sitting here on the table, and we'll grab that real quick. So what I'll do here is I will start with autofocus on. I've targeted the cup is what I'm going to go after. And if you watch, as I start moving, I'll start the zoom a little bit, slowly controlling it with my thumb. And as I Dana dolly, I'm able to zoom in. The focus is locked onto my subject very, very well. And I get a very nice dynamic shot, right? And the same applies if you're going backwards. So same thing, if you want to come out and just do a kind of nice reveal, it's a nice way to use the motorized zoom to give you some more depth and give you a little extra chutzpah in your shots. Now, that's because this lens has the ability to do the motorized zoom, as I mentioned earlier. The great part is you can just turn it off. So should you need to turn it off, you can, and then suddenly you have a fully manual zoom. It has a little bit of a lag to it, which I'll talk about when we do a general review here in a second. It has a little bit of a lag to it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that can even be adjusted if you want. But it also has stabilization, which I found to be extremely helpful when working off the dolly. Another shot example that you could do is, let's just say you're framing up something and we've got some wrought iron work here. So let's say we wanted to be on it. The fact that you can very quickly reframe that shot and grab it, and autofocus failing, because of course it is. Let's try it again. There you go, autofocus. So I can grab onto my shot and I can move across and I can get a nice parallax, I can get a nice vibe out of it, and it's very easy for me to do simply because I can cheat and use the autofocus, but more importantly, I can reframe the shot accordingly and very quickly. So it does allow for a lot of functionality, and that's the point of a zoom, is it should be a very functional lens. That's why I say it is probably one of the most integral parts of a kit, and I think it might be arguably the perfect lens to be using with your FX3, FX6. Now, let's talk about the specs. The overall specs of the lens, it is an f4, which many of you might freak out about, but I will tell you, again, if you're shooting on the FX6, FX3, the reason I like this lens so much for it is a very simple reason. Just switch your ISO. So if you need more power, go to your double ISO, flip over, go to the highlight side or the high side of your ISO. And again, an f4 at full frame, it looks really good. The other fact is you have the ability to zoom. So if you're not quite getting that background you want or the separation you want, always consider the idea that you can push in or pull out or move around. You can make adjustments very quickly, and it works spectacularly for that very reason. The other side of the lens, obviously it has the autofocus, which I talked about earlier. That is crucial. One of the best bits I've shot with this is when we're shooting high speed stuff, whether it's horses or mountain biking, being able to grab that lens, throw it on my shoulder, knowing that I can zoom in manually and I can zoom in, but the focus will hold the entire time. That's pretty rad, and that's pretty spectacular, especially when you're shooting slow-mo, and it gives you that ability. Look, we all know that the Sony's autofocus capabilities are classic and we love them, but when you have a lens that has that much throw distance to allow you to, again, punch in or pull out, that adds something else to the table. The build of the lens is solid, it's strong, it's pretty good. I have no complaints. It feels a little cheap in a few spots where it's plasticky. I wish it was all metal, but again, that would change the weight. So arguably the lightness of the lens does add somewhat to that, and I appreciate that about the lens itself. And as I mentioned earlier, it's become a standard in our kit. If we're doing docu-style shooting or any other type of product or video shooting, we will bring this with us. And usually, even if we have our primes, we will bring this with us because we never know when, in a moment's notice, we might need to be able to slap on the zoom and grab stuff. The real key to this lens and the real beauty of it is that the price is not super bad. It's about $2,800. I think you can find it, maybe even some used for less. It's been out for a little while, that's fine. The matte box is not my favorite because of it orientates a weird way to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and the matte box is cheap, but normally we can stack our clip-on matte box. We can also go ahead and put on one of our standard O'Connor matte boxes and have no issue. As I mentioned, it works great on both FX6 and FX3. I highly suggest giving the lens a try. That said, are you gonna win any Academy Awards with this bad boy? Probably not, but you will be able to get more work and more business and more shots done. So in terms of growth, and in terms of making money, and in terms of making good-looking stuff, why not have something in your kit that gives you that absolute ability without breaking the bank? And instead of buying some cheap cinema primes, which I'm not against, but instead of buying some cheap cinema primes, spend $2,800 and get yourself something that's gonna work maybe more than you do. That's it for this episode. If you like this kind of content and you wanna see more, make sure you've subscribed. If you haven't, that's great, fine too. Thanks for watching. But also consider the idea of hitting that notification. We have a massive lens test video out there. If you're really into cinema primes, check that one out. We reviewed some top glass, a variety of different lenses, both on the FX6 and on a Blackmagic Ursa G2, because I love that camera, and it's done better for me than some Arri Alexa stuff. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks for hanging out. See you soon. Bye.